Now, peace and security are featuring prominently here at the African Union Summit. And as we saw from that devastating attack in Kabul, it is an issue of a global concern. Now, there have been mounting calls for more of a global effort to combat terrorism. In many instances, terror groups are interlinked, and that's true for both ISIL and Al-Qaeda. In Nigeria, for instance, Boko Haram militants are affiliated to ISIL. And in Somalia, Al-Shabaab militants are affiliated to Al-Qaeda. Terrorism is a concern across North Africa and the Sahel as well. And just on Saturday, at least 14 soldiers were killed by gunmen in Mali.
West Africa, with ACME, there are some attacks that don't touch only one country. The problem is more complicated. If we don't find a solution to the causes that bring about terrorism, it will be difficult to eradicate terrorism. I'm taking the example of Libya. You have all heard about this. It is a country a victim of attacks. There is a crisis, and this crisis has got some effects on the sub-region and the entire African continent. And together with your support, we will be in position to mobilize the international community, which is supporting us. But alone, we cannot manage. We have to bring together our efforts to face this situation.
Well, let's get more now on what's been going on here at the African Union, both on the sidelines of the main agenda, which should begin tomorrow. CGTN's Voldi Karese, my colleague, has been following all those developments. Voldi, it's been a rather interesting day, of course, here at the African Union headquarters. There have been quite a number of sideline meetings ahead of the summit itself tomorrow. But importantly, this will be the first time in 37 years that this summit will be held without President Robert Mugabe, and President Mnangagwa has made his first appearance.
He did indeed. He did it at the new Partnership for African Development, the development arm of the African Union. Just about half an hour ago, Beatrice, he addressed the NEPAD Heads of State Summit, saying that President Robert Mugabe will now join the League of Elder Statesmen on the continent. He hopes to see him at AU events in the future. You'll know that we see former presidents here all the time. Nigeria's former President Obasanjo is here. I've seen South Africa's former President Thabo Mbeki as well. Mnangagwa saying that Mbeki will now join their league. He was very happy to be, of course, a part of the happy family, as he calls it, of the African Union. He is, of course, fresh from wooing investors at the World Economic Forum, where he announced that Zimbabwe is open for business. That is certainly a message that he carried through to his NEPAD address. It was very brief, but he certainly garnered a lot of interest, not just from the media, but also from the diplomats who came over to just say hi to him and introduce themselves to him. Like you say, the very first AU summit in many, many years without Robert Mugabe.
Well, another first, of course, will be the absence of Africa's first woman president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Footballer and now president of Liberia, George Weah, will be making his first appearance. But in terms of the lack of having Ellen Johnson Sirleaf here, how's this all going to play out in terms of the balance of gender power?
I think that that's certainly something that the African Union is looking at, particularly its reform agenda is focusing on women leadership. But it's very clear that this is a man-dominated space. You walk into any of the meetings and there's mostly men in those meetings. And even now at the NEPAD Heads of State Summit, I mean, of the presidents and leaders that were there were mostly men. And certainly Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is someone who's had a massive impact, not just on continental leadership, not just on regional leadership, but certainly for the international community as well. And her absence will certainly be felt here. But I think there is an excitement at the way Liberia's elections was held. I spoke to the APRM Observer Mission who were there. They just met with the new president of Liberia, George Weah, and they were saying that there is a hope in the country, and they're hoping that he will come to the summit and kind of give an update on the handover of power, sort of a lesson that can be learned by other states on the continent.
So I do know that this afternoon some heads of state were here for sideline meetings of NEPAD and the APRM, but give us a clearer understanding or indication of just how busy it's going to be here over the weekend.
It's certainly very, very busy, Beatrice. Things have been running late because leaders are stuck in various meetings. NEPAD was supposed to start. It started about an hour and a half late. The reason for that is because people were at the African peer review mechanism. Sudan was peer reviewed by some of the member states. That happened in a closed door session. And obviously the leaders will want to engage more fully on certain issues. Also, we had the new members of the Peace and Security Council that was announced, and of course, like you said, peace and security on the continent is always a hot topic agenda here at the African Union Summit, and those kind of meetings ran late, which means people ran late. But we also saw an address from Paul Kagame ahead at the NEPAD Heads of State Summit. Of course, he will be leading that reform agenda that is high on the AU's list of things to do this weekend.
That will be very interesting to hear how that implementation will be going. But of course, very brief comment from you, Volde, because it's going to be an interesting topic this year, one on corruption, which definitely touches many African countries. That is going to be an interesting topic.
Absolutely. I also think that it's part of the AU's kind of mandate to try and become more relevant to people, to choose such a hot button topic like corruption. It's something ordinary people can relate to. And the champion of this anti-corruption drive by the AU is Nigeria's Muhammadu Buhari. Now, a recent study by Afrobarometer showed that Nigerians feel like there has been some progress in tackling corruption in that country, but not enough is being done to do it in terms of the public service. I feel like a lot of African countries lag behind in that. And the biggest question that people will pose is whether or not an anti-corruption drive should be a top-down approach. Can leaders really make a difference at a summit like this, or will it be just another talking point?
Well, that is something that we'll be looking forward to seeing, particularly the implementation of the 4 agendas that will be coming out of this meeting. Volde Karese, thank you very much for your insights.